Tell us about your honors and awards. So now you've been doing Taekwondo for quite some time, and then you also have this, Hong Kong International Computational Award. You're in the top 5% for coding, more Taekwondo, this neat award from the US Embassy. That's crazy. Tell us about which of these are you really proud of? Which of these do you think really made a big difference in your application? Hello. Today, we are joined by Arla Jan Patrick Ragun, who is a Duke student. Patrick found me, I guess you could say, through YouTube. He was perusing the internet, and I think we were just chatting a little bit before this, and he told me he was interested in attending Yale. So he was just looking up some stuff. And then eventually he made contact. Now he's a Duke student. He hails all the way from the Philippines. But go ahead, introduce yourself. Tell us your story, Patrick. I'm so excited to get started.
All right. Thank you so much, Kevin. So hi, everyone. My name is Patrick Ragun. I'm a freshman and an international student at Duke. I plan to major in computer science, statistics, and a minor in journalism and media. I come from the Philippines, as Kevin mentioned. So basically, back in high school, I was in a Christian school, and I was a part of this Taekwondo team where we competed in a bunch of competitions, and it helped me achieve a scholarship, which is a sports scholarship, and it kind of so that was back in 7th to 10th grade, and then I changed schools in junior year because in the Philippines, for context, at least in the educational curriculum of the Philippines, the standard one, we can choose our own major, and it's called strands. You can choose computer science, you can choose animation, you can choose STEM in general, or UMS, which is humanities. So I chose computer science or software development as my strand because that's what I kind of want to pursue in the future in terms of research. And so I went to iAcademy Nexus. We had a bunch of advanced computer science programs core Java programming. It's also the AP, but the thing is we didn't have math or science, which is really weird. So I had to self-study for that throughout junior and senior year.
Okay, wow. And at what point did you start getting interested in attending an American college or university? So did you consider university in the Philippines? Yeah, what made you decide to want to apply internationally? Did you look at maybe other schools in Europe or Asia?
So this is kind of an interesting story because my family did not want me to attend a college in the US because my family was trying to move to Australia because my sister's already there, and my mom's trying to retire in Australia as well. So we were looking into University of Melbourne, RMIT, and Monash, and we kind of did this tour. I went there for 1 month, just touring schools. So they were kind of opposed. Then the reason why I got into the I guess rabbit hole of searching colleges in the US is because my best friend, she was trying to attend Cal Arts. She was like, oh yeah, might as well just try it. And I got into, watching YouTube videos, stumbled upon Kevin. Until then, my family was still kind of ugh. But I tried applying for a bunch of programs that would help me, gain financial support because my family could personally couldn't afford the $90 application fee for those colleges. So I got into this Education USA honors program, and it's the official extension of the US Embassy for college education. And so from then on, they were kind of oh, this may be a possibility in the future. And through that program, it also destigmatized that US colleges is only for the rich. And there's also a bunch of financial support out there, scholarships, merit scholarships, need-based scholarships as well, that can support me throughout the 4 years of education for something big in the future. So in the last week of college application, I remember myself just struggling to use the ISFA. So basically if you don't have the CSS waiver, because we were not US citizens, we can't access those stuff. We have the ISFA, which you can fill up and just submit to the colleges, but I did not have time because I kind of procrastinated. So my sister just paid for the CSS submissions, which is a really huge support.
So tell me more about kids from your school. Were you the only one applying to American universities? Tell me more. You said you were emotionally supported, but I also know as an international student, looking at these opportunities, it can be really lonely or disorienting. Or maybe you can just tell us more about that process and some of the emotions you felt. Maybe if you remember a timeline, when did you start seriously thinking about it? Was this something you started thinking about in 10th and 11th grade, or was more last minute?
I'm gonna be honest, like applying to colleges abroad wasn't something that I felt was achievable, especially like my background. I'm just like a kid from like a small town trying to pursue something like big, and it just like feels so unreachable for me because like the students who come from like Philippine Science High School, international schools in the Philippines, and like basically like flagship schools in the Philippines, those are the students who go to like schools in the US. And I thought that they're the only people who like can also like afford it. In the Philippines, like when you get into like these schools, you basically get the spotlight. My friend now got into Princeton and I like saw his Facebook post. We use Facebook in the Philippines, which is like something I get bullied for here at Duke. Um, but yes, I was scrolling through Facebook and I saw his like post. He got into Princeton, Amherst, and one guy also got into Columbia, and they got like full rides and stuff. And I was like, oh, this is like so crazy. I want to like try pursuing something. And so like I attended their webinar and like I kind of like heard their stories of like not having that much support from like their schools, the schools itself. So it was crazy hearing the stories of like them making a PowerPoint presentation of what the Common App is to their guidance counselor, writing most of their recommendation letters. So that was also crazy. I kind of like started introducing that to my guidance counselor. I started like communicating to my teachers what I want to do in the future. This is what I want to do, and this is how we're gonna like pursue it. We are gonna go through the common half, but like of course not like forcefully like that. I wanted to pursue computer science and the arts. Through that, the only way I can achieve that is through the US education. So I contacted them. I gave a bunch of PowerPoint presentations on what we're gonna do. I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna give you a brag sheet, and basically like the brag sheet includes like everything that I want you to mention in my recommendation letter. And we also like dug in deep on what the guidance counselor side is of the Common App. Like for I guess for the traditional student who's like applying through the Common App, like we only get to see like the side of where you're doing your essays, extracurriculars, awards, financial stuff. But digging in deep for the guidance counselor part, you have to make a school profile. You have to make an explanation on what happened at your school during COVID, an explanation of your Philippine curriculum as well. So I kind of like helped my guidance counselor make that school profile, what iAcademy is, what our educational background is, what the achievements of the school is. That was an interesting and also like it was very hard and scary for me to go through because I was putting all this much effort into a process that I did not know if it was going to work. So all throughout, I was just like scared.
Okay, let me stop you right there, Patrick. This is absolutely crazy. Let's put this into context because schools like these top schools, especially the Ivy League or Duke, and there's very few schools in America which offer full financial aid. And I know a lot of international students are really interested in those schools. So it would be like Ivies, liberal arts colleges that you mentioned, which a lot of students don't know about, but definitely apply if you're an international student, even if you're an American domestic student. Those schools are just amazing. Okay, let's backtrack. Those schools like Duke, schools like Yale, they don't take many international students from a single country. You're basically competing against other Filipino students. You would not be competing against like Kevin, boarding school student from New Hampshire. You would be competing against other Filipino kids. They take maybe less than 5 kids a year. That's it. They
Yeah.
take less than, I know for a fact from China, the biggest country in the world with 1 billion people, they take less than 10. And then you have to remember that a third of those kids will be athletic recruits, right? Another percentage will be legacy. And then another percentage are going to come from those flagship rich international schools. And then there's Patrick, who beat all odds. This is crazy. Like the number of hoops that you had to go through. You had to not just apply yourself. You literally put on a new hat and you're like, listen, I'm the guidance counselor now. And then you filled out
That's true.
of the Common App. That is ridiculous. That's so wild. Can you tell us a little bit more about how do you think you did that? I'm hearing a lot of proactivity and leadership from your end. You were like very kind but firm. You're like, listen, this is what we're going to do. You came in with a plan and you're like, we're going to do this. You had a little team supporting you as well. But anyways, tell us more about your profile or extracurriculars or like going into applying to colleges. Did you have a certain strategy? I'm hearing CS and art, which is actually a really, really good strategy. So a lot of schools these days are looking for some STEM fields, some humanities. And if you're able to like combine the two, that interdisciplinary angle, I don't know if that was on purpose or by accident, but either way, that's a really good strategy too. But go ahead. Yeah, tell us more. I just want to learn more.
All right, thank you. So basically, like going into to the college application in the US. It was like 11th grade. I did not have much time to like really curate my profile for like the perfect student who gets in. So like I had a bunch of like extracurriculars. I had a bunch of like they're like all around. I had singing, I had like taekwondo, I had game development, I had like software development as well, which is like it's an interesting mix of stuff, but I guess like what helped me like tie everything together is my life story of me like it kind of is like personal, but basically like I want to pursue something that's related to research in mis and disinformation in the future, which I want to like address through computer science and arts. So basically in my story, computer science and arts like manipulated media where like propaganda or like maybe manipulated news that has like false information gets the spotlight in social media through computer science or like algorithms that prioritize like engagements. You like it and stuff like that, and it will like show up through everyone's like social media pages. And like in the Philippines, we don't have much resources, not having that foundation of an objective history of like what happened back then. It's like easy to manipulate like people in general. And so basically my extracurriculars kind of like tied that together. So I wanted to pursue research in disinformation through computer science and arts. But that's the thing I want to do in the future. But for now, I like make these projects that give out resources to people, and I want to like enhance like the access to knowing objective history in general. So one of my favorite projects is basically make establishing a mini library for a school without access to technology, because without access you can't like you can't like have information. All of those like extracurriculars get tied by education. So I teach low income students taekwondo so they can also gain like sports scholarships, which is also access to their education. I make games which aims to like educate on gender inequality and climate change. My main story is me pulling off my sports scholarship to help my family with my schooling. So basically, I leverage taekwondo for education. So that's how I kind of like all tied it in a knot, even though it was all around. So it was like, education.
I completely hear you. So this is exactly what happened to me as well. It's not like Patrick or I sat down when we were 12 years old and we created like a roadmap to Duke or Yale. We showed up in 11th grade and we looked at all these random things and we were like, okay, so how do we cook these ingredients into like a presentable meal that actually tastes good, that somebody would understand or enjoy? Really, really smart thinking. For you, it was just like, okay, I'm going to draw these three giant circles, right? And like, how do they intersect? And I'm hearing like on the big end, it's this idea of access, education, equity to basically promote, to lift people up and also to fight inequities. I think strategically speaking, like you hear these college admission consultants, they're like, oh, focus on like your edge, like develop a spike, get like super duper specific. And while that is good, there are going to be circumstances where, sometimes there's students who like, I guess you could say Patrick or I, where we just find ourselves with a lot of different interests. And then at the last minute, we just need to figure out a way to tie it all together. So to make the process a bit more transparent, and especially since I know so many international students watch this channel, particularly from Asia, East Asia, South Asia, we will, Patrick has been so kind enough to agree to share some of his stats and honors and awards, just so you guys can get a sense of, what he did. All right. And also what he is currently doing. So let me just share the screen real quick, and then maybe you can walk us through some of these statistics. I think like when you just see it, it looks really like, okay, here it is. It's like GPA 98 out of 100, batch rank 1 out of 215. Here's the major that I was thinking about. I went test optional. But yeah, walk us through. Can you explain a little bit more about like what do these numbers mean? I think, a number like 98 out of 100, this GPA probably took you hundreds of hours to achieve. I think on a sheet of paper, it looks so simple and it looks kind of almost deceptive, right? But walk us through what does this actually mean?
All right, so basically in my high school, instead of like a 4.0 GPA, I went test optional and like I applied for the interdisciplinary studies. Here at Duke, we call it the interdepartmental major, where you can basically like combine two majors in one. And like if that wasn't like available for like the other colleges, especially for like the liberal arts colleges, I just went for science, technology, society, and then computer science, and then visual arts or film. That was like in order of priority, depending on like the availability of majors on the Common App.
So what I love is this. This is brilliant. I think most times like I have to sit down with a student and we discuss this for, maybe even hours. But if you're able to develop your own theme, and again, you want to pick something that you genuinely care about and have
Mm,
proof that you've worked on these projects on in the past and are, this is a legit passion of yours. And then EFC, I asked Patrick what this meant earlier, and it just means estimated family contribution. He attends Duke on a full scholarship, which is amazing. Congratulations. And
Thank you.
and then yeah, and then again with the major, this is super smart as well. Like you guys don't have to pick the same major for every school you apply to. In fact, it might be good to switch up the major depending on that college's offerings, things like that. For international students, test optional is totally fine. I think a lot of students fret and they freak out about this. But the reason so many colleges went test optional is because they wanted to open it up to more amazing international applicants. And I've heard these crazy stories where people were like, I need to fly to a different country or like to a different province in order to just take the test. So you really don't need to do that as long as you have like your GPA makes sense, especially if you have a reputable, I don't want to say reputable, well understood curriculum like AP or IB, that's totally fine. So, okay, Patrick was like, school was fun. It was pretty chill. You did a bunch of projects that you enjoyed. Tell us about your honors and awards. So now you've been doing Taekwondo for quite some time. And then you also have this, Hong Kong International Computational Award. You're in the top 5% for coding, more Taekwondo,
Mhm.
this neat award from the US Embassy. That's crazy. Tell us about which of these are you really proud of? Which of these do you think really made a big difference in your application?
So basically, like all these opportunities, the Taekwondo ones were like kind of given to me by my coach, but like for the computer science one, I kind of like went through like, Facebook, what like my peers kind of joined before, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. I might as well like try it. So I tried the International Python Coding School Challenge, and that was one of the like most enjoyable ones that I kind of like did because it was just like three challenges, make a hangman, I don't know, this like kind of prompt, and they like kind of give you like the creativity to like explore Python basically, and that's how I learned object-oriented programming through Python. So that was really nice. So and also like kind of helped me with the Hong Kong International Computational Olympiad because that was also Python. And for the National Interschool, that was one of my first national competitions, which is video based. And the US Embassy Philippines, that's the story that I was telling Kevin about, like my family, like kind of opposing my dream of pursuing US college at first. And then I got in through like an application that was like sent out by the US Embassy. And I remember it was like February. I did not like expect anything. And I got an email. It says, congratulations for getting into the honors program of the US Embassy Philippines. I was so amazed of like getting all these like opportunities just by trying, because like if you don't try, is the acceptance rate. I think I kind of heard this in their YouTube video. If you don't try, the acceptance rate is going to be 0% for sure. That's the only time that's going to be 0%. So that's the time when my family also like discovered that this may be a path in the future.
Yeah, I'm just, they tell so many students like, oh, you should focus on your spike and be very pointy, focus on one or two dimensions. And in your case, I'm just seeing like a very round circle. And
Yeah.
it's amazing to see how you've excelled in all these different dimensions. And I think that's kind of what made you stand out. But yeah, let's take a look at some of your extracurriculars, because you also mentioned you were really interested in singing. Of these extracurriculars, I know I guess you kind of rank them based on maybe commitment level, but sometimes the best things to mention about, especially in your essays, are related to activities that are quote unquote lower on the list. I think some of the really top ones, like they speak for themselves. You obviously have like amazing Taekwondo awards and things like that. But do you remember what you wrote some of your extracurricular essays about?
An interesting thing that I did with my essay, I tied my singing with my Taekwondo because like I guess like also a tip for those who are applying, in the organization name and like the position and description, we can basically like tell a story as well. For example, in the last one, I said in the organization name, coached by my mother, and then open and close parentheses, formerly worked as a voice tutor to pay our family's bills.
It makes people want to root for you, if I'm being honest. And so that's
Thank
the
you.
kind of quality, that authenticity, how far you've come, personal growth, obviously. But I think all these things were working in your favor. not to mention the dozens of amazing projects and interests that you have. Is there anything else that you think played a really big role in you getting into schools like Duke?
I think like one tip that I got from like one of my who kind of helped me, which is like my good friend, he's now in Colombia, is like except for the essays, like as a whole, like how much meaningful one essay is, how much like impressive one extracurricular is, like like how like impressive your teacher says about you. When you like take a step back and like look at your application as a whole, make sure that like it makes sense who this person is. When you take a step back and like look how this like all ties together, you can see like one clear individual who like has a vision in the future, who did this, who's now doing this, and who wants to do this through that college. And I guess like that's what I kind of like focused on while building my application, is that not just like drama dump or stuff like that. Make sure that it makes sense that this is me and this is what I want to offer you.
Yeah, maybe Patrick should be my college counselor. He's just spitting straight fire. He's too good at this. My goodness. This is I'm so impressed. I really am blown away by how articulate and yeah, how well you understand this process and all that good stuff. So let's switch gears a little bit. Tell us about Duke. So what was that like? Did you get a chance to tour or visit? I assume not. Maybe the first time was that first semester. What was that transition like? What were some of your highs, some of your lows? Yeah, how is Duke?
I like right now, like sitting on this like table, like looking outside my window and seeing like, oh, that's the US or something like that. It like kind of feels surreal that like going through that whole application was like so worth it, because like Duke is something that I didn't expect at all. Like it was the last college that I like opened and like said congratulations. So like right now, I guess the best day that I remember was the first day of me like being at the airport, meeting all these like other international students who are also like scholars, and like being so in awe and like being surrounded by these people. And I went to the C1 bus. So the C1 bus is like the bus that connects you from east to west. And so they kind of like dropped us to east campus, and I went onto the bus. I remember seeing the chapel just like rising and stuff like that. It was also like so pretty because it was golden hour, and so like seeing that chapel rise, because it was my first time touring the campus, it was so surreal. Like it definitely felt like something that was out of a dream. My academic advisor right now, I don't know if I can like mention names, but like hello to Dr. OJ. She's basically like helping me out, helping me pick out courses that I want to pursue, and like also what I need to like fulfill my major requirements. So she's been like great at giving advice, like not only also that, like also helping me get like work study and stuff like that, and what I can do in the summer. I guess like the resources available is something that I did not expect that would be here. For example, like the major requirements itself, I want to do something like that's like interdisciplinary in general. So we have this major called the interdepartmental major, where you can like combine two majors in one, and also program two, if like that major does not align, you can use program two to like combine more majors. So that like really something that I wanted to do back in high school, and so like right now having access to those is really fun and nice as well.
It sounds almost like it reminds me a little bit about Brown. Like I hear Brown has like this open curriculum, but I had no idea that Duke offered so much flexibility. Yeah, this is news to me. And I think that's probably what made the admissions committee be like, this guy's perfect. He has a billion different interests. He'd be the perfect Duke student. So what about life outside of academics? You still do taekwondo, you're still singing. What's that like? Is it similar? Is it different? Are you still training personally to compete in some of these events, or are you mainly leading, training, and helping others?
What's different now, like in terms of taekwondo, is like for the last 2 years of high school, I was just like coaching people. So it was definitely a transition for me to like get back into training and stuff like that. And like getting into taekwondo in the US is something that's like really challenging, because I went to Brown like last semester for like this really, really nice intercollegiate Eastern thingy tournament going on. And I just realized like these are the people who are like competing at the worlds and stuff like that. And so it was, yeah, because like we have the number one Pumsa player competing against us. And I was like, oh, I might need some additional training to just like at least get a medal. And so it's like really amazing that you also get like a team captain that's also part of the USA national team and stuff like that. And you like talk about people who were like you knew through the national team in the Philippines, and like, oh yeah, I know this person. So that was that was interesting that like it's also a small world of taekwondo, but it's also like definitely challenging in terms of singing as well. I guess it's also different because like back in the Philippines, I served at the choir like as well, like as my mom like mentoring me. So like getting into pitchforks, which is like the all male identifying acapella group, is also like a switch because like it's not co-ed, and so you like hang out with like these people who are like so great at singing, and they're also like doing music major and stuff like that. And so it's so in general, it's just like so amazing that these amazing people now surround you. Comparing like back then, you were just like a big fish in a small pond. Now you're just like just a fish in a pond with amazing people. That's it.
In some ways it can be a little intimidating. You see all these like amazing people, but at the same time it can like,
Mm,
yeah, ignite a little fire under your butt and you're like, all right, maybe I should train a little bit more, practice more, which is good.
that's true.
So tell us more about what would you say is the best part of Duke? What do you love most about Duke? And what would you say is maybe, I don't want to say the worst part, but what would you change about Duke?
I guess like what I love most about Duke is this is so like cliche, but like the people. No, because like even in the first like week of orientation, I got to meet like these amazing people who are like I'm still friends with. It's like my main friend group, and we like kind of like push each other to like achieve greater heights in general and like apply for these like really really cool scholarships or like programs and stuff like that for the summer. And they're like also supportive. It's just like one testament of how like it doesn't the support does not only end in your academic advisor, like your faculty. It's like all around you. And also like I really love the school spirit because like yesterday we were just like at a basketball game, and you can like notice how the work and life balance really is existing here on campus. Like one day you're just gonna be locked in your room, like working on a CS problem or something like that, and then like at night you're just like, oh, people are kind of like dressed up. Like how the hell did they like schedule all these stuff? And those people, they have like the craziest Google calendars, and so so that was an interesting thing. It's also like the best thing, like you're surrounded with like people who encourage like you also taking a break. And one thing that I would change is, I mean, for context, like I love my roommate, and we're gonna like be roommates next year. But the thing is, the single bedrooms are like really hard to get. I tried getting a single bedroom before like meeting my roommate. It's like a lottery system, so not a lot of people get it. So that's one thing that I would change.
Gotcha, gotcha. Yeah, the singles, they're always coveted, no matter which university. I,
Mm,
I had a sing I didn't know how spoiled I was. I had a single in high school
uh,
and then I went to college and they're like, no, nobody really gets singles in your sophomore year. It depends on the dorm, sometimes other stuff. But tell us more about the Duke people, because I'm really interested in that. So what I'm hearing is very welcoming, very supportive, kind of like this work hard, play hard culture. I don't know if that's accurate, but that's kind of what I'm getting a
mm,
sense of. And then and at the same time kind of like ambitious, but I don't know if it's like
mm.
more outwardly ambitious or more like quietly ambitious. But what else do you think separates Duke students from other universities? Because I mean, you know quite a few of your friends who attend a lot of different institutions. What makes Duke a little bit more special or unique? The school spirit for sure is a big one. We had a lot of even Ivy League schools have zero school spirit. So I wish we had the level of spirit that you guys have at basketball, football games. I wish. But anyways, tell us more.
I guess for me, I don't know if this like stays true for like other people, but when I went to Duke or like the US in general, I was like so scared if there would be like a social divide or something, or if there would be like, I don't know, on campus at least, like racism, because like we're also in the South. So I was like a naive international student going into the US for the first time, and like hearing all these like news stories of like Asian hate. It was definitely like warming to be like welcomed in a community where it's like all inclusive. People like respect like your background. They're like also willing to like know more about your background. So this like exchange of, I guess, information of like where you came from is possible. is like people here are just like curious about you and stuff. And like what separates Duke students from other, I guess, universities at least. And I'm like, for context, I'm like comparing it to the ones in the Philippines and like some of the universities I know, is that people here are like high achieving.
It's always a surprise, and sometimes you don't even know. They're not gonna like brag about it or tell you.
Yeah,
Maybe you just find out like later on subtly. So these things are always, for me, they always felt like a bit of a surprise too. What else is there anything else that you would like to tell us about Duke or college that you haven't had a chance to yet?
I was gonna mention that like when you're an international student, like also like when you're a scholar in general, I don't know if this is like true for domestic students, but going into Duke, I was like really worried about like the other finances stuff, like maybe tools that will support your education. When I got in, they were like really generous to like give me, I guess, like a stipend, not really like for transitioning, just like a refund in general. And also like they gave me out a bunch of like, you know, laptops, bedding and stuff like that, which like made it easier for me to transition, which kind of addressed what I was like very worried about going into the US. So I think that Duke is like really generous in terms of like helping out international students from low income.
I found something similar at Yale too, and there was a lot of money even that we didn't know about. But once you start looking for it, there's all kinds of trips and scholarships and really so many support networks. Even they would like help pay for winter boots or, like Patrick mentioned,
Oh,
laptops, bedding, even maybe some off-campus moving supplies or travel as well. Definitely the hard part I think is getting in. And then after that, there is a lot of support. All
yes,
right.
very smooth sailing.
So tell us a little bit about Patrick in the future. Have your goals remained the same since you applied? Or are you thinking about changing them? Are you thinking more research? Do you want to do more school? Do you want to, what would be your, I don't know, dream job? Or where do you see yourself in a couple of years? I know that was a lot of questions.
And so what I want to do in the future is I want to like it still needs a bit of like, you know, deciding more stuff, but generally I want to follow a track in researching misinformation. I want to maybe in the 5 years in the future pursuing a PhD in something for that. Yeah.
It seems like you're getting a chance to explore new stuff, but at the same time, still keep maintaining that theme. I think it's such a noble pursuit. And I think it's honestly just getting worse. Like the problem of misinformation with how much I just feel like content these days is being more easily produced and reproduced through AI. And there's really no one or thing checking it, but there should be. The government, I feel like, wants that to be handled, but they don't really know how, which is why we need people like you. And of course, in like some areas of the world, the problem is even more acute, like you articulated. It's probably even worse in the Philippines than it is in America. Well, depending on which part of America. What other final thoughts would you share to the people watching on this channel? Maybe some words of advice to your younger self or anything else that you think you really want to talk about or discuss. It could also be related to college or something completely different.
I just like take the piece of advice of my younger self. I guess just like stick to your Google Calendar and everything will work out. Yeah, that's it.
You're very organized. I think yeah, you came in and you're just like, this is what we're gonna do. Very quiet but firm. And I have a plan. And all we need to do is stick to the plan. And things are gonna turn out very, very well. Of course, it's very normal to be nervous as you are like executing on that plan and you don't know what college you're gonna end up at and how things are gonna turn out. But there is an element of, you know, faith and trust and just making sure that even just creating the plan in that first place, you're already like miles ahead of many other students. But honestly, don't even compare yourself to them. Just compare yourself to your previous version and creating that plan, sticking to it. Over the long term, you will succeed, whether that's like getting into your dream school or maybe even just a little bit more down the road. But anyways, Patrick, thank you so much. I can't thank you enough. Like, thank you from the bottom of my heart for taking the time out of your busy schedule. You're probably busier than I am now as like a student. Once the break is over, things are in full swing on a Sunday. And I don't want to keep you here any longer. You can go enjoy the golden hour of the Carolinas. I haven't had a chance to visit Duke, but I really, really want to. Maybe when I come, we can grab a meal together or hang out.
Yes, for sure. Thank you so much, Kevin.
Thank you, Patrick. All right, guys, thanks for watching if you stuck till the end, and we'll catch you at the next one. Bye, take care.